This morning I'm delighted to be joined by Sam Spoors from Talentheads. So, Sam, give us a bit of background to save me doing it.
No problem at all. So like you say, I'm Sam Spoors. I'm the founder and managing director of Talentheads. So Talentheads, I set up that business 4 years ago now, and we work as the internal recruitment team and learning development team for growing businesses. So we help them find the right people and then retain them by doing the right strategies, by working on the right things, so those people can thrive in those opportunities that we've placed them in.
So that sounds to me like a perfect background for helping me discuss what it is I want to discuss this morning. And if it's all right with you, what I'd really like to unpick is the place that young people have in the world of work. And, you know, it seems only 2 minutes ago that I was talking about the millennials are coming. And I saw a statistic the other day that said that 50% of the working population, this is probably based on American statistics because they all are now millennials. So we've got Gen Z coming. Well, they're here. And I'm reading all sorts of stuff about, I wouldn't employ Gen Z. I wouldn't employ young people.
Right.
What's your view on that whole subject?
Well, I think that's very dangerous, isn't it? Because we need different people with different life skills, we need different experiences, and we all know that high-performing teams is about diversity. So we need a mixture of people from all different ages, backgrounds, all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's really dangerous. I do think it is an interesting one because I hear those conversations as well about the work ethic, the confidence, you know, the expectations are very different in the future workforce and the workforce that's coming through at the moment. But I do think there's always positive and negatives to everything. And I do think there are some really good things that have happened with the generations that are coming through as well. So it's important to look at both equally, I think.
And you recruit and you help with learning and development. What's your own personal take on the younger generation?
Well, not only is my business about the talent aspect of businesses growing, but obviously as a business owner as well.
Yeah.
My team are very diverse. So I've got team members who are younger and I've got team members who are more experienced. So I can kind of see it firsthand as well in my offices. And my opinion is that I do think things have changed, and I do think that expectations as an employer have changed. You do need to be more flexible. You do need to look at your individuals more on an individual basis. But to be honest, Ian, we've always had to do that as employers in any case. It's always about the individual rather than a tribe of people or a cohort of people. It's always got to be about the individual. So my perspective is, yes, things have changed. There is a wave of common kind of wants and needs and expectations as a business owner, as an employer. But I think that everything has to evolve, and this is just part of businesses evolving.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was doing, before lockdown, when I was doing seminars and keynotes, I was talking about the fact that probably for the first time ever, there are 5 distinct generations, or there's a likelihood of having 5 generations in any particular workforce. And I instinctively see that as an advantage. But, you know, some of the headlines that, if I can read them out, Generation Z are an employer's nightmare. 75% of leaders are avoiding Gen Z hires.
Yeah, that's crazy though, isn't it? Because everything else is changing. So technology is changing, you know, AI, we're talking about a lot, auto kind of making processes kind of more automated. You know, these are skills that we need. The younger generations who their lives are taken up by that, that's just we need those skills to be able to help our businesses. So actually, you know, if we don't embrace the workforce that's coming in, we're not going to embrace the changes that businesses need because of technology and such like as well. So I think that's a really crazy statement.
Well, I do, but I mean, as I said, I did some research. To be honest, I didn't have to look far.
Yeah.
And very quickly I turned it off because it was just depressing.
Yeah. And also, Ian, I've got 4 children, and those 4 children are the future workforce.
Of course they are.
And I kind of like to think like they can, like, you always want to empower your children and everyone else, but it's like they can do what they want to do, and we want them to be good members of society and contributing towards the community and stuff. And yes, there are certain things like, you know, picking up the phone and having a conversation with someone, you know, the confidence to look someone in the eye when you're having a conversation, having even a handshake.
Yeah.
For my 16-year-old daughter, shaking someone's hand, I saw the first interaction where she ever shook someone's hand. And she was absolutely, afterwards, she was like, did I shake it too hard? Did I shake it? And I was like, Maddie, it's just about respect. It's a respect thing. You look someone in the eye and you shake hands. You know, that those sorts of things are different when their whole lives have been on a device.
Yeah.
And their relationships are through social media channels rather than those one-to-one relationships that maybe other generations are used to, have kind of had since the very beginning, and they've kind of grown up building those relationships.
Grew up in a different world.
We did. We grew up in a different world. But this world that we're living in now, and the world of the future, is what this generation know and where they're well placed. So we have to engage with them. And like I said earlier, it is absolutely about diversity. We need different perspectives within businesses, or we'll just end up cutting off opportunities for businesses to be able to grow.
So what would you be saying to a business owner of an age that was of a mind that, oh, I don't want any youngsters in my business because they're snowflakes.
I would say that you these people could be your customers and things as well. Like, actually, you know, those individuals, yes, they could be team members, but they could be a customer. And if you haven't got those team members in there to be able to identify with those customers, then you're going to be missing out on a potential revenue pot. It's going to hit your bottom line. But I would also just say, like, we need to move with the times, and I do agree to some degree. Like, there is some frustrations there.
Yeah.
You know, people.
There is a change.
There is a change. Yeah, and I can feel it definitely as a business owner. You know, that 9 till 5:30, that when you come in, you're fully engaged. You need to be working just on the business. This is about the business, not about you. Leave your life at the door. You know, some of those things that unfortunately we were brought up with. Like, that now is not the way that people perceive it. And some of that's really good change as well. So I would say we need to evolve our businesses around this. And it's all about balance, and it's all about respect. We don't need to go too far and start now, you know, overcompensating. There is still some boundaries that need to be put there. And I do think there are some great things that over the generations that I'm definitely part of, that we've learned, that I do want to teach the generation that are coming through. Yeah. But I do think we probably need to be more open-minded, because talent is difficult to find. We all are talking about finding the right individual and then retaining them. And if you cut off a large segment of that talent that's coming through, is your business going to grow in the way that you want your business to grow? For the sake of just being a bit more open-minded and just changing a few things and just being not respectful, but just being aware that things have changed and we just need to move on with the times.
I think it's interesting what you said there about teaching people, because I remember when I was very young and just starting on my management journey, and I shared a house with a pal who was in the hotel trade.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying to me, he said, you know, mate, what I've learned is if I'm trying to employ somebody and they don't naturally call a gentleman sir and a lady madam, and they don't, it's really, really difficult to teach them. And I get that, but I'm going back 40 odd years now. I think the fact of the matter now is that we've got to accept that we do have to teach young folk.
Yeah.
And the eye contact that you were talking about is a classic.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, so many young folk don't naturally make eye contact because they've grown up in a different world. But it is still important.
100%.
So I think that the employer has to take responsibility and just accept that there are certain things that we're going to have to teach people today that 20, 30 years ago we didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
And the thing that annoys me about, and I get it, but the thing that annoys me about slating the younger generation, whether it's Gen Z or millennials, although millennials are quite old now, is, you know, we all do it, but I really object to stereotyping people.
Yeah. It's a very big generalisation, isn't
Isn't
it? It's
it
like
just?
this millions of people are just not fit for the workplace.
I like this.
That's not good at all.
But I think, from my point of view, when I'm coaching leaders, one of the things that I try and instill in them is the fact that everybody's an individual.
100%.
And we need to be able to connect with that individual, not with that generation or that tribe, just with that person.
Totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, that's exactly what our business is all about. It's about finding out what motivates that person, what strengths they've got, what things they can bring, and then what boundaries they've got and what challenges they've got, and then working with that individual to help them flourish. And I think if you take everything like that, that is so much easier than trying to assume, trying to put a stereotype on someone, trying to put a label on someone. I think labels are very, very, very damaging, and I think they're trouble. So if you just get to understand that individual, then you don't need to look at your policies, your procedures, your benefits. You know, you're assuming that you a certain type of like tribe that's coming through would expect X, but if you just understood your team members individually, it's a lot easier work, because then you just do things that help that individual, rather than having to just change everything, because it becomes then much bigger than it needs to be.
Yeah, and it is definitely, it never has been, but it's definitely now not one size fits all.
No. And do you know what? I think that's good, because I don't know about you, but like I remember in my corporate life before I set up a business, I remember someone saying to me, "What do you want on your gravestone, Sam? Do you want Sam Spoors works hard? Because I've got a really good work ethic. I'll work until it's done. I unfortunately make decisions that are business based rather than for my family. I've always been known that because I'm so ambitious, I've always made certain decisions. I've always kind of gone for it." And I remember that kind of conversation being like, well, that's what everyone does, isn't it? Everyone just works until they fall over. Everyone just works until you're absolutely shattered to death that you have to then take some time off. And I think, you know, this kind of individual perspective of what do people want, and people being psychologically safe is a bit of a buzzword at the moment as well, and saying what matters to them. I think that's a good thing for all generations, because actually Sam Spoors works hard. You know, I want Sam Spoors has made a difference. I've made an impact. I've worked smarter. I've worked more efficiently. And actually this generation, because they use their voices a little bit more, does help us as well, not be those kind of workhorses, Trojans that we've always been known for, because that's not healthy when you only get one life.
So we have got as much to learn from the young folk.
100%. And that goes back to the individual. If you know individuals, then it's not about them and us. It's not about this generation and this generation. It's just about people. And it's about what can we learn that person can bring that actually is refreshing and a new perspective, and actually is forward thinking and thinks outside the box, that then can help every single person. It just kind of move us all together by hearing different opinions and different perspectives and different worlds, rather than assuming this is how one lot of people work.
Tribe,
and this is how another.
Yeah.
It's got to be a bit of everything, and I think that can only be a positive. But we've got to accept that rather than trying to push it away, because we'll never evolve and we'll never move forward.
And I think for me, the role of a leader is to absolutely know on an individual basis what really, because what drives me will be different to what drives you. Will be different to what drives that person. And if I don't know, if I haven't made the effort to understand what drives an individual, then I might as well just throw mud at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Which fundamentally is the leadership technique that a lot of people have.
Yeah, I think sticking your head in the sand is absolutely not the way to get the best out of people. And I think we keep going back to this growth thing. If you want to grow a business, you need to know how to get the best out of your people.
Yeah.
And something that's extremely important about that is sitting down with their individuals and getting to know them and understanding what motivates them, you know, why they're in this, why they're doing it, what's important to them. You know, all of those things will absolutely help you lead that person, and that person in a consequence will give you back everything that you need. And that loyalty and that retention piece again, which is super important to businesses. That's when it all becomes good.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I do in my business is that I absolutely make sure that those internal meetings happen. They're just as important, if not as important, as going out and saying, the one-to-ones and listening to people and understanding them and hearing their perspectives and giving them a voice and all of that sort of stuff. It's just as important as meeting a new client, because actually who's going to fulfill that client need if you win that need if your people aren't engaged?
Yeah.
And you
don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Exactly. Because isn't there a saying around, if you assume something, there's like a...
Makes an ass of you and
yes, yes, exactly. If you assume, it does make an ass of you and me, because it does mean that you are assuming a certain person is motivated in a certain way, and actually there's that connect's gone, and you need that connect to be able to push forward.
It puts me in mind of, there's a guy called Marcus Buckingham who used to work with Gallup, and he's now heads up ADP, and he's written, must be 6 or 10 books, really, really good. He's definitely a thought leader. And he once said, he said, people often ask me how many people can report to one boss. And he said, it's an age-old question. He said, but to me, the answer is really, really easy. And it's the number of people that person can have a weekly check-in with. Yeah. Now, for some people, it might be 0. For other people, it might be 3 or 4, but it won't be 10 or 15.
No.
And for him, it's exactly the point that you made, that weekly check-in. Now, that weekly check-in is not about business performance. It's about saying, so Sam, what did you really enjoy last week?
Yeah.
Why did you enjoy that? What are you looking forward to this week? And it's about getting to know you. And he calls them red threads. The red thread is something that you just love doing. He wrote a book called Love and Work. And they're 2 words that you rarely use in the same sentence. And for most people, if you ask them what they love about work, they'll look at you as though you're from the planet Sanusi. But actually, I was thinking about that this morning. Most of us, there is something that we love doing. Whatever it may be just adding up a column of numbers. It may be organising the Christmas party that you're having tonight. Yeah. And he says it's really quite easy to know. You just ask yourself, what would I volunteer for? What do I always stick my hand up for?
Yeah.
But we don't have those conversations. And if I were your boss and we didn't have those conversations, 2 things would happen. I wouldn't know what you really enjoy. And also, you wouldn't know because nobody's asking you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those weekly check-ins, as he calls them, and I you know, I've got to be honest, I took an extract from the book because it's processed. You talk about this and you talk about that. But you're absolutely right. If we're not doing that regularly, in other words, weekly, we're just deliberately disengaging people, I would suggest.
100%. And I think you're right as well when you say that some people just can't do any. Some people are better at that than other people. My heads of department are great at that. Hence the reason I only do 3. I've got 4 direct reports. and then they then manage their teams, and they religiously have a weekly meeting with their teams, because you've got to listen. It's active listening. It's like making sure that you're there, you're present, you're sitting down, you are engaging. So actually, for some people, that might not be a strength, but for other people it is, and it's about playing to that strength and making sure they are being done by someone who does want to listen and does want to engage and can ask all the right questions.
But that's why I also say, don't make somebody that doesn't get people
a
manager.
Yeah, which is so common, isn't it? That could be another topic.
That is another topic, and we'll probably come back to that for another day. But that whole, to me, that whole, it's almost, it's not a conflict, but it's about understanding the macro, but really focusing on the micro. We started talking about generations, but it's really about that person that's in front of you.
Yeah. And as well, when we were talking about the generations, and then we start talking about the individual, and then we talk about business owners, or business leaders or stakeholders, how you bring people together regardless of their different backgrounds and their ages and all of those different kind of characteristics. It's all about values. So I think for me, it's about being able to understand what your company values are, that then brings all those people together. So all of these individuals are different. They've all got their own strengths. They've all got their own weaknesses. You get to know them all individually, so you know how you can inspire them and empower them and all those great things that you should be doing. But then if you've got the values that underpin the business, that the purpose, the why, all of these things that those people all agree on and is important to them, that's when that kind of really good recipe is there, because then everyone's kind of like, yes, I am different. Yes, I come with a different background or a different religion or whatever it is. But actually what our business is trying to achieve, that makes me feel good. That is
part of something bigger.
Exactly. And I'm proud of that. And that's why I want to work in this business rather than for one of its competitors. So I think values are also important when we're talking about how do we manage differences in individuals. If everyone believes in the same thing, there will be different perspectives on that, but believe in the same thing, then it is much easier.
At that higher level, that's where we join together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've got to also just acknowledge that everyone needs investment in. So if it is the investment of the eye contact or shaking a hand or picking up the phone or doing a presentation, or some of those skills that we hear are common that are kind of lacking in some of the future workforce that's coming through, then that's what we need to invest in. Maybe someone who's more experienced might have other things that we need to invest in. But again, it's about understanding what the individual needs and working on those things with them to help them flourish and do well.
As I say, it never was, but it really isn't one size fits all now.
It's not. It's definitely not. And there is definitely some positives that are coming through from it. We all need to move on. We need to evolve. We need to kind of push our businesses on, and we need a mixture of everything to be able to do that successfully.
So I'm going to come back to something we were talking about before we went on camera. Your big campaign for this year, or is it a theme forever? Go on, tell us what it is.
It's the More Than a Number campaign. So this actually was something that was kind of created last year, but actually it was a way of us being able to understand what we actually stood for that was different to anyone else offering our services in our field. So actually, even though it was created a year ago, it is something that's really helped us kind of articulate what's important to us and how we are different, how we're unique. So for us, it is about being able to understand that people are more than a number. And I love the concept of, how much employability, jobs, flourishing careers can have an impact on someone's life. Putting shoes on their feet for their young one, getting the keys for their first house, Christmas party and a Christmas tree, looking after a loved one and being able to take a present because you're being paid, getting out of bed in the morning and wanting to go to work because you've got friends there, and all the mental health kind of pieces that employment can bring as well. I think that kind of we'd lost a little bit about the impact that jobs and fulfilling careers could have on an individual's life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it was more just about need a bum on a seat, another number, need to get another head in, and we were talking about people as if they were a thing, rather than the individual and what it meant to them, and being able to see people as actually, if you get the right person and you do the right things with them, everyone can kind of grow together.
Everyone benefits.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
And that's super, super important to me.
And it's quite interesting that, I mean, I know we sat here a week or so before Christmas, but I just got a text from my stepdaughter. I asked her where she was for Christmas, because she normally comes back up here.
Yeah.
And she said she's just bought, her and her boyfriend have bought the first house.
Nice.
So she texted me back last night and said, I'm in the flat. And then it dawned on me, of course, it's our first Christmas in our own, first time she's ever had the opportunity to spend Christmas in our own bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity that is.
That gets me right in the stomach. I really, that's what life's about. It's milestones.
Coincidentally, my niece, who I rarely see, moved in 7 days ago into the first house she's ever purchased with her boyfriend. So obviously she's as high as a kite. And we tend to forget, or I tend to forget, how important that is.
Yeah. And how amazing is that? I mean, every single 25th of the month, when I do payroll, it freaks me out. I look at the pipeline, I look at the amount of money that's going to go out, and I think, oh my goodness. And I get that 1 second of, oh gosh, are we okay as a business? What's the next steps? What does it look like? But the overarching feeling that I get is they're 14 people that I can have an impact on their lives. And that for me is a massive proud moment, where to be an employer and give 14 people, be part of the journey with them. I'm not saying that standing next to them when they get their keys or anything. I'm not saying go that far, but being part of that journey where, they're happy because they enjoy what they do, but also that they're able to take something back with them that then gives them a quality of life or a purpose that means something to them. That's really, really precious. And I do think we have lost that. We've lost that connect when they walk out that door on a night time. We don't sometimes think about the other part because we don't want them to bring that baggage to work with them. But that's who they are. Yeah. And I think it's important.
And that's life.
It is. And do you know what? As an employee, I would have liked my bosses to be seeing me as a person, as an individual, as someone that they respected and they wanted to bring on. And then, it's a mutual transaction of services and skills and experience for pay and for.
I think it's more than pay, it's meaning, it's purpose.
Yeah.
And just as you're talking, Sam, I think that's something that's changed.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, the best people I ever worked for did understand me, but they weren't necessarily connected to my life outside of work, and probably didn't care whether it was my first house or not. But I think that there is more of an expectation now, even from me, to understand what's going on for people, because if it ain't right outside, it's not going to be right inside.
Absolutely not. And I do think, again, this sounds like it's a bit of a generalisation, but I do think people now are happier to talk about it.
Oh, yes.
I remember working in the recruitment space and being employed, and I worked in one business. And at the time, I had 2 children. It was very male-dominated. I wanted to, like I said earlier, I've always been ambitious. I wanted to kind of push on. And I didn't talk about the children because I didn't want it to have an impact on how far I would go.
And it would probably be a negative impact.
And I felt it would have a negative impact, but no one asked me about the children. Not that I was expecting them to, because that wasn't really what would happen there. Was it? But every Friday night, everyone would pack up their bags and then they would go to the local pub. But I had 2 young children. So I would pack up my bag. I'd go to the pub because I'd want to be seen. I'd go to the pub so that people can check me and that I'm there and I'm being part of something. But then I'd have to slope off. And as I'd get in the car to drive back to my family, I'd feel that connective of I'm trying to be one person because I want to get on with my career. And then when I get into the house, I need to be a different person because I want to be a mother and I want to be a wife and I want to do all those things. And that's really not, I only lasted a year in there. And I'm very loyal. It's one of my personal values. but I just couldn't see how that employer didn't know me and I needed to be something different, and ultimately that just didn't work. And if we're looking for people that we want to keep in our businesses because we want to invest in them, like, we need to know our people.
Yeah.
Or they will
And
just
be
walk
interested
out the door.
in them.
Be interested, yeah. And be proud. Like, be proud that, like, you know, the school plays that they go to, you know, that's a great part of what kind of employer you are when you embrace that sort of stuff. Yeah, you can, I've got 14 people that I can be on this journey with. That's really, like, it helps the loneliness of being a business owner, and it also gives you even deeper purpose on the reason why you've set up a business and you run a business in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess as time goes on, as you see those people and their families growing.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen weddings, I've seen funerals, unfortunately. I've seen babies, I've seen new dogs, I've seen, like, people's faces, I've seen sadness and happiness and all those things. And that's the human connection that is really, really important, which has been lost because we just keep putting people in boxes, keep stereotyping, assuming these things, and just treating people like the mass. We can't treat people like the mass. There's nothing fulfilling about that at all.
Yeah.
We need to really understand our people, and we need to be, one of our values as community. You know, there's nothing better than building that kind of community, that aspect where you are actually giving something back and helping something be bigger than it was before.
And I think it's interesting that you use that word stereotype, because that's the opposite of individual, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And we need to see people as, we all want to be seen as an individual.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and I always say this as well whenever I talk about things like, how would you want your daughter or your son or your niece or your nephew or your husband or your mother, how would you want them to be treated? Because actually, if you heard that they were treated in a certain way where it was assumed that they couldn't make eye contact or didn't want to build relationships or just wanted to be on their phone all day, would you think that was fair treatment of that person that you love? And that's one of those things I think that you really need to kind of take a step back and just think about how that would impact you if you were sitting on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, this. I think if I was to conclude, as leaders, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
To get really granular and competent at this stuff.
We have, but it's really fulfilling when we get it right, and it will have an impact on the profitability, on the bottom line of the business, but also within our personal lives. And I think that rather than kind of pushing it away, it's absolutely about embracing it and evolving and moving on, and not holding grudges if someone walks out the door at 5:25 because they feel like they've finished work. You know, some of those things have to change and they have to move forward.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, as leaders, we need to tap into our people, and we need to have a bit of empathy and really kind of use those relationships to our advantage, personally and professionally.
Or suffer the consequences.
Suffer the consequences, which is not fulfilling, fulfilling at all.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Sam. That was as fascinating a discussion as I thought it was going to be.
Good.
And it's good to see you getting passionate about it.
Yeah.
I can see what as an individual, what makes you tick.
Yeah, I really believe in it.
I know you do.
I really do.
And that's why, Talentheads are going gangbusters.
Yeah, we're doing it differently. For us, it's not about numbers on the board, bums on seats, people coming in and going out. It's about long-term strategic thinking, get the right person in, nurture them, develop them, invest in them, and grow together. And that for me is much more longer term, a lot more able for us to be able to budget for and to see our business grow. And it helps us create legacies for everyone, which is exactly what I stand for.
And I guess I know the answer to this, but the clients that you're working with long term,
yeah,
to what extent are they benefiting from that?
Well, the retention piece is much, much better for them. So they recruit less, they have less HR issues, they find the right people. So it's a better working environment. They're building cultures that attract other additional people into the business. And they have individuals who are out there singing their praises and pushing their brand forward because they've got an employer.
Rather than moaning about them.
Exactly, yeah. And social media as well. People are on social media all the time. You want good things said on there. So just doing some of those nice little things and really investing in your people just helps your brand positively push forward. As well as, like I say, you get that good feeling about being part of something, and you're not alone. You're part of it as a business because everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and I've been saying for years that we nowadays need to work as hard on marketing ourselves to our present and future workforce as we've ever done marketing ourselves to our present and future customers.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The people that you have in your business will then ultimately have an impact on the clients that you get and how long you keep those clients for.
Yeah.
So you start with your people, and then the business bit it'll organically happen because they'll see what great, engaged, forward-thinking people that you've got, that you care about them, that you are invested in them. The clients, the right clients, if that's the kind of client you're looking for, will then engage with you as a consequence.
Win-win.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Sam.
Thanks.
Thank you.